The old town in Brussels has a similar vibe to almost every other old town you'll find in the major cities around Belgium, except it's bigger, grander, with a heightened energy that can really be infectious. Or maybe I'm just visiting at the right time of year. The town square is simply stunning, and the surrounding streets are full of amazing Gothic buildings and laneways to explore. It has the strangest monument I think I've ever seen tourists crowd around, and equally strange souvenirs to go with it. Corkscrew, anyone? But there is also plenty of beer, chocolate and waffles to be found around every corner. It's not a place where I'd spend a week, but you can have a fun couple of days experiencing what Brussels has to offer. I was staying at the Grand Place Arenberg Hotel, which is in a great location just on the edge of all the action. A short walk away from the front door is the Cathedral of St. Michael and St. Gudula, which is the perfect place to kick off a walking tour of the city. This massive twin-towered Gothic cathedral took around 300 years to build and has stood in some form for around 1,000 years. It is most impressive from the outside, but if you also wanted to explore the interior, make sure you don't miss the details carved into the pulpit. I walked straight past this initially until a nice old lady pointed out to me the detailed carvings of the Garden of Eden, including a serpent and Adam and Eve mid-expulsion from the garden. So I went back for a second look. Heading down the hill from the cathedral, you can go in two directions with very different experiences ahead. If you take a detour straight ahead and to the right, you'll end up near the Opera House and Rue Neuve, which is a massive pedestrian street packed with modern retail shopping and major chain stores. But because I'm not really much of a shopper, I turned left through the Galeries Royales Saint-Hubert on my way to the Old Town instead. This is an impressive shopping arcade with a glass roof that is nearly 200 years old and is now full of famous chocolatiers and some interesting art shops. Even if you aren't looking to spend a fortune on high-end chocolates, it's a fantastic place to window shop and just admire some of the more elaborate and artistic window displays. I mean, where else are you going to see oversized chocolate Smurfs? Once you come out the other side of the arcade, you're just near the Grand Place. After seeing every town square in every major city around Belgium over the last week, there is no doubt that this is the one you absolutely should not miss. It's bigger in size than most of the smaller cities, of course, but what also catches the eye is the gold detailing on the facades of the guild halls on the edges of the square. On one side is the imposing Gothic town hall, and directly across from it is the King's House. The sheer scale of these buildings makes it easy to see why it's often ranked as one of the most beautiful town squares in the world. And if you come at the right time of year, you might just run into this. From Grand Place, you can really just pick any direction and get lost in the cobblestone streets at will. I really enjoyed just wandering through this area without any particular destination in mind. The architecture is stunning at almost every turn, and the streets are absolutely packed with restaurants, cafes and pubs spilling out onto the streets. But eventually, you'll stumble across a particularly busy street corner that is packed with tourists. Here you will find the Manneken Pis. And yes, I did look up if that was the correct pronunciation. It's very strange for a couple of reasons. I mean, apart from the obvious, it's a fountain of a small boy relieving himself. But secondly, there doesn't seem to be any universally accepted reason why this thing is here or why it's famous. And last of all, they dress him up in all kinds of outfits when there are major events or on important dates. So he's essentially the quirky mascot of Brussels, and when you visit the city, you're going to go and see the statue for no real reason other than because it's there. Possibly to see what he's wearing. If this doesn't do much for you, at least there is a cluster of shops selling Belgian waffles and fries right nearby. They are elaborately presented, overflowing with chocolate, strawberries and whipped cream, and while they may not be the quiet, authentic bakery experience, they're absolutely delicious and a great treat while you're walking around. My last comment on this unusual attraction is that it does make for some of the best souvenirs you'll find anywhere in Europe. If you're looking for a way to then walk off all that sugar, you can power on outside of the old town towards the Porte de Halle. This is a massive fortress tower that is actually the last remaining piece of the medieval city walls of Brussels. Unfortunately, when I finally got there, it was completely closed off and under heavy renovation. So, if you're visiting anytime soon, maybe check on the status if you want a clear view or to go inside. Taking a different route back towards town, I'm now heading towards the Royal Palace of Brussels, which also takes you past the Royal Museum of Fine Arts, which is a massive complex if you have half a day or so to spare. Just past that, you'll arrive at the official palace of the Belgian King and Queen. The sheer width of this building is impressive, and the front gates are not very far back from the main building, so you get a really great view even if you can't go inside. There are very limited times throughout the year where they do open up the palace, so check online if you're planning to do so. In 2025, it did not open at all, but it's meant to be back by summer in 2026. One last tip on the palace is to avoid this area on the Belgian National Day. The streets get blocked off and everywhere around it gets extremely crowded. Just a short walk away are the best viewpoints in all of Brussels. At the top of the hill, alongside the Magritte Museum, you'll have an uninterrupted view across the city. And just down the steep hill in front of you, you'll reach a large platform overlooking the manicured gardens of Mont des Arts. Still, with a lot of that beautiful backdrop that you had at the top of the hill and the towering spire of the town hall rising up just behind the gardens. You can roam around at your leisure or continue to the other side where you'll find yourself back in the old town and just near the main central railway station. If we had have gone in the opposite direction and past the palace, there's another large retail area there and a more commercial part of the city. Here you'll find the Parliament and UN buildings, but it's a bit soulless and much less over here for tourists visiting the city, so you're much better off to just stick to the older part of town. If you wanted to venture further out, you could also visit the Triumphal Arch, which is an absolutely stunning monument, but something I've only seen while driving past, so it's at the top of my to-do list when I'm next in Brussels. Apparently you can climb all the way to the top, and I can't wait to check it out. The Atomium is also popular, but I'm a bit more on the fence as to whether it's worthwhile. So if you have been there, please let us know what you think in the comments below. You may have noticed from some of the videos that if you arrive in the middle of a major event, it could disrupt parts of your day. I cannot speak for what happens the rest of the year, but in July, you'll see pop-up events take over parts of the city in the lead up to both weekends of the Tomorrowland Music Festival. And it's great fun. The National Day also has a big impact on the area near the palace and has lots of cool stuff going on. The air show especially, you'll be able to see from all over the city. Thanks for watching, and if you made it this far, then you might enjoy my video on the full Belgium road trip, which is on screen now.